Hello everybody, my name is Patricia. I am a first-generation Beatles fan, and this channel is called A Little Beatles Corner. Today I thought I would try to do a little historical thing, looking back at what it was like for an American Beatles fan, first generation, in 1964, and actually probably onward till about mid-90s or so, when the internet came about, in terms of how we stayed connected to the Beatles and how we acquired things in our collections and that kind of thing. So before I do that, however, I want to mention two things. First of all, of course, is thank you to everybody who has supported this channel and subscribed to the channel and been involved in the channel in any way at all. I really thank you so much for sticking with me on this little venture. So I'm so grateful. Thank you. And the second thing I want to say is just a little piece of news. I saw a YouTube video 2 days ago. Angie McCartney, who was Jim McCartney's second wife, and Ruth McCartney, Paul McCartney's half-sister, have a YouTube channel. They had an interview with Rogue Best, who was Pete Best's brother. And apparently the Heyman greenhouse where Pete Best and Rogue Best grew up with Mona Best, they've done a lot with their home in terms of renovating it. And so apparently starting August 1st, they have 5 suites within that house that people can go and rent through Airbnb to stay in for their stay in Liverpool, which is really great. And I also saw that the Casbah Club is now open for tours 7 days a week. And that's amazingly great, because it was so hard to get there when I was there 20 years ago. Now they have different kinds of tours and what you can do, and the price tag is different depending on what you choose. And they actually have some musical things going on too, which is really nice. So you can go to petebest.com website and check all that out to see whether there's something, that's for you if you're going to Liverpool anytime soon. Actually, the Casbah Club, of course, is just as important as the Beatle, Paul and John's house and the strawberry fields and whatnot. So anyway, I thought I'd let you know. Okay, so now getting back to 1964. So when the Beatles arrived in the United States in February 1964, I was 2 weeks shy of 11 years old. So if you do the math, that makes me 71 years old right now. Okay, so I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania outside of Philadelphia. And Americans would understand this. It was a little Andy and Mayberry type of town, which it still is today, actually. We only had, a drugstore with a soda fountain, a hardware store, a little convenience store, the post office, the fire department, and like a tavern that had, adults could go, for drinks and, some food. So we didn't even have a grocery store in that town. And actually, today there's still not a grocery store there. So it's a town stuck in time. And but actually people want to live there. It's pretty popular. So anyway, that's where I came from during that time. So in 1964, after the Beatles came and went, of course, we all became Beatlemaniacs. And so we were really thirsty to connect with the Beatles, have the Beatles be part of our life every day, and just see the Beatles every day, really. So, of course, things started coming out fast and furiously after they were, really popular when they left. So, the magazines started coming out, that were Beatles specific. So, there was always those to get, and you could cut out the photos and put them on your wall or in your notebooks at school and whatever. There were so many of them, as you all know today. So we had that, and then we also had teen magazines that every month you would go to the drugstore, and this is 16 magazine, which was very popular. you would plunk down your 35 cents for a copy, and you would get stories and pictures of the Beatles in here, along with other, rock and roll favorites at the time. The British Invasion group started, being in the magazines and stuff too. And, you could get enter a contest and, have a date with a Beatle, and buy posters, through the mail, and, give them your $1 and send it through the mail, and get a poster for your wall and whatever. So we had a lot of those teen magazines that came out every month. This one's Teen Set. There was Tiger Beat, which was very popular. So having access to all of that was very helpful, because that's where we got our photos from. And then, of course, as far as photos go, we had the Beatle cards that came out right away. And so we had small, photos of the Beatles that we never saw before, a lot of them. And we could put them in our wallets and purses and notebooks and all that. So that was really great. Now, as far as, Beatles and the records go, then, these were also out early days. And, they were interview records, so we could hear their voices anytime we wanted to if we bought these records. Now, of course, a lot of them they're pretty cheesy, really, but at the time, of course, this is all that we had. So we had to depend on, buying these records to hear their voices and kind of hear more about their stories. So these became really important, even though they're not that important now. So then in 1964, when Hard Day's Night came out, we would all go to the theater, and we'd sit there all day, usually on the weekends, of course. And you only had to pay one time, and they didn't care. You could sit in there all day, and we did that. And, of course, we screamed at the screen when our favorite Beatle came on and everything. And I can't tell you how many times I saw Hard Day's Night. Probably more than anybody in the world, let's just say that. And, the same with Help. We would go there, and so we got to see them kind of live and in action and everything, which would tide us over until when we could see them on TV, either like on Ed Sullivan's show, or, some other places that they, TV things that they were on. And then, of course, later, some of the promotional films that they put out. So that was how we visually saw them, so to speak, live during that time. Now, when then, like, say, in the during that time also, there were a lot of Beatle fan clubs you could be part of. We had groups at school that got together and played Beatle records together. The school dances on Friday nights were Beatle, a lot of it was about the Beatles. We carried transistor radios and, secretly in our pockets all day long, so we could catch the next, Beatles song that was on AM radio. Now, we only had 3 television stations at the time, so we didn't have a wide worldwide view of what things were going on. So we had AM radio and maybe three TV stations. So we were really limited. So then after, time was passing and everything, then, into the 70s, I want to say 75 or 6, I think, the Fest for Beatles fans began, with Mark Lapidus spearheading that. And if you were in any of the major areas that he had a convention in, then, you could go there and, have access to the marketplace. And it was a huge, huge, huge marketplace. And you got to see so many things that you never saw before. And you could buy so much stuff that you could never buy before. And that was one of the major ways of getting your collection then, because in 1964, you had the drugstore that had Beatle cards and whatever. You probably had, you had a record store. You had a department store that maybe had bigger things like the record player or something. But you didn't have access to everything. So it became a little more worldwide in a sense once the Beatle conventions started happening in the mid-70s. And now there's this other man by the name of Charles Rosenay. He had a convention in the New England area. And he was pretty prolific in terms of supporting all Beatles stuff. And he gave a lot to the Beatles community really for a large part of his life, because he not only did conventions also during that time, then he put out, a fanzine that he did from probably I'm not sure when he started, but maybe the mid-70s or so. And I think he did that all the way up until about the year 2000, and it was Good Day Sunshine. So you got a lot of Beatles stories from there. There were ads that he had, so you started connecting with people who were collecting stuff and wanted stuff, and you could have pen pals and trade stuff and kind of make friends with people through snail mail. And at that time also, then there were other fanzines that were coming out, and there were many of them, and I only have a couple different ones. So besides Good Day Sunshine, this one was from Florida. And I don't know how long this was out. But this one also had, articles. So you learned about what was going on with the Beatles and their group through those. And here's another one. This is a New England convention thing. And then there was, sorry, I got so much stuff here. I'm trying to wade through it. Then of course this is later one. A Beatle Fan came out in the mid-70s, I believe, and it's still in print today. So you got all your, Beatles stories from them, and, there were ads there. So there you go. You started connecting with people, as I say. And then during this time, around the mid-80s when VHS started coming out, then collecting Beatles video became a really big thing. And so you would, through snail mail, you would contact people who had video when you saw their ads, and if it was something that you wanted, you either paid for it, or if you had acquired a big enough video collection over time through buying and trading or whatever, you could trade video with other people. So, I want to say 100 VHS old Beatles trades and whatnot. So I'm sure that most of that's on the internet right now, but at the time that was really precious to us, because that was pretty much the only way we had access to so-called live Beatles whenever we wanted. And then A Hard Day's Night came out, I think, in the mid-80s, around 1985 or so. So that was the first time we had any Beatles video movies that we could see. And so, that was very important to us too. So then also, in conjunction with that, whenever any kind of big periodical like Life or Look came out, we would buy those, because they always had, Beatles stories on their covers and from time to time. And other periodicals came out. This is a record collector, where you learned information and there was ads. And like I said, in the mid-80s, that's what you were doing. You were getting pen pals, making friends, trying to increase your collection in whatever way you wanted to by buying these and connecting with people in snail mail. And there was tons of advertising in this, along with a lot of information about, this one is about Ringo Starr interview, Dark Horse Records. So they had some major covers, Goldmine did, on the Beatles. So, we would collect those too. And then I would say that, in the mid-80s then, or mid to late 80s then, a lot of books were starting to come out about collecting. So this one was Perry Cox, And this one was 1988. It's the second edition, so we did one prior to that. And I think he was probably one of the first people who was researching records, at least American records. And so you could start looking at these to see what you didn't have, what you wanted to have, and some information about it. So that was very valuable for us, earlier collectors in the 80s. And then there was these people, Rick Rand, Jeff Augsburger, Marty Eck. They did 2 versions of this, and they did it more from a memorabilia point of view. Let's see, so you could go through this, and they gave actual values of what they thought things were worth. And so you could look through the memorabilia things, and you could see, what you had or what you didn't have. I actually used this quite a bit for a little while. I thought I wanted to collect Beatles buttons, and so they had a whole list of all the Beatle buttons. So, I would look for them, and I would mark off when I had one. So I did stop collecting buttons, but I mean they had big sections on different kinds of memorabilia, and they were well known at the Chicago Fest for Beatles fans, because they were always there, and they were from the area, so they were well known in the Midwest. So anyway, that's kind of what happened up until, maybe 1995, I think it was, when maybe the internet started becoming popular, and maybe eBay came out a year or so after that, right around there. And of course, it started making things a whole lot easier for people. But I just thought I'd let you kind of see what our experiences were early on in, say, the first basically 30 years and after the Beatles came to America. So anyway, if there's any first generation American Beatles fans out there that have something to say that I neglected to talk about, I would appreciate that in the comments. And if there's any UK first generation Beatles fans out there that watch any of these videos that have had experiences that are different than ours, I would like to know that too. That would be very interesting. So anyway, that's it for today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions, please ask. I will try to clarify anything you want me to do. Let me know, and I'll make a new video soon. So as always, Beatles forever.